As you already know from previous videos, I've shown you several funerary inscriptions carved a very, very long time ago into ancient limestone slabs from the archaeological site of Agadir. And if you take a closer look at them, they still have much to tell us. In this video, I invite you to join me on a rather unusual journey. That of a curious soul who, without being an epigraphist, was drawn in by the mystery of these letters frozen in stone. When I touch them, it feels as if they whisper fragments of forgotten stories. But why should we care about them? Because the way an inscription is carved tells us something about the deceased themselves. A carefully engraved, regular, harmonious script that often reflects a wealthy or noble family, one that could afford to hire a skilled artisan. A simpler, less precise but still legible script that might suggest a more modest origin, a burial in a rural province, far from the great cities. And when the letters are irregular, sometimes clumsy or incomplete, that speaks volumes too. We're looking at a humble grave, made with limited means, but still driven by the desire to leave a mark, not to be forgotten. In short, stone doesn't just speak of the dead. It also tells us how the living loved them, honored them, or forgot them. Among all the stones documented, one in particular stands out because of the harmony of its lettering and the care with which it was chiseled. This suggests it belonged to a wealthy family living in Pomeria. But before diving into the story of that family, I want to pause for a quick reminder about onomastics. Roman citizens had a praenomen, a nomen, and a cognomen. Female citizens, however, didn't have first names. As for the local Berber populations, they gradually adopted Roman naming customs. And once Roman citizenship was granted, rather than abandoning their native names, they began blending their Libyco-Berber and Punic names with Latin ones. This became widespread after the Edict of Caracalla, the Constitutio Antoniniana, 212 AD, which granted Roman citizenship to all free men in the empire. As for freedmen, they adopted their master's name, while their original name became their cognomen. Slaves, finally, received the cognomen their master assigned to them. Now, back to the Rogatus family. The precision of the inscription on their stone shows they held an important place in Pomerian society. One detail struck me. I haven't found any other epitaph bearing this name at the Agadir site. However, Rogatus, not of Latin origin, does appear elsewhere in Mauritania, according to the corpora I consulted. The epitaph begins with the invocation to the D Manes, a formula attested from the early 2nd century AD, according to the writings of Jean-Marie Lecire and Philippe Leveau. Then, each of the deceased is mentioned in the nominative case, followed by their age at death, sometimes down to the exact number of months and days. Finally comes the name of the dedicator, the person who commissioned the monument. For the couple Jovinius and Iulria Rogatus, it was their son Felicianus who had the tombstone made. A formula specific to Pomeria appears here, that of an eternal home built in honor of the deceased. This expression, by contrast, isn't used at numerous Syrorum, modern-day Lallamagna. Rarely do we see the year of death engraved on the epitaph. Two questions then come to mind. First, does the name Rogatus have a particular meaning? Second, was it common in Mauritania Caesariensis to bury spouses together? The answer to both is yes. Historian Jean-Marie Lecire, in his work on the chronology of pagan epitaphs in Africa, sheds light on this. Rogatus means the one who is asked for, the one who is prayed for, a name with deep, almost spiritual meaning. And the practice of burying spouses side by side appears in other places too. Notably in Kalama, modern-day Guelma, where an epitaph, cited by Muhammad Abid, mentions the names of two spouses resting together. This inscription appears in the ILA, page 41. In Timgad, René Cagnat, in his 1893 article Chronique d'Epigraphie Africaine, mentions an epitaph where a man and woman's names are carved together. And so this episode comes to a close. In the next one, I'll tell you more about the Rogatus family, their origins, their social rise, those among them who made their mark on the history of Mauritania Caesariensis during the High Empire, and also the diseases known in antiquity and the funeral rites practiced before and after death. A fascinating chapter, not to be missed.